Right. So what we have discussed as part of communicating requirements, like earlier were BRDs, SRS, all that. At the same time, we have even discussed about the UML diagrams. In this UML diagram, we have discussed about use case and as well as sequence diagrams, because use case diagram majorly explains you about the primary actors and how primary actors were connecting to the application. But when it comes to the sequence diagram, explains you about the sequential process of the functionalities, whatever we are about to develop or we are developing. So this diagrammatical representation, which will be used as a visual representation and all. But when it comes to the agile environment, because there are two different models, one is about the traditional model of application development, something like waterfall model, V model, all that. But whereas when it comes to the agile model, agile is a way of approach. Of course, what exactly agile was, the detailed part of agile, I have not started it. So once I have shown you the project so that you will be understood. But here is a difference you need to understand, because if you follow the application development life cycle, like SDLC, all that, there are two things, as I mentioned earlier. One is about the traditional practices of application development. Traditional practices of application development majorly focuses on the waterfall model, right? So that is the first thing which normally we follow, waterfall model. This is what generally application development lifecycle model was. You can see it on the screen. So these are the different stages we can see in any of the project. First one is this I already explained, just I am just reminding again to you. So one is about the analysis phase, where problem will be analyzed, followed by enterprise analysis. All that will be done in the analysis phase. Next is planning and design. Whatever the project planning, developing solution architecture for the project, and whatever the communication of requirements performed by the business analyst, all these things comes under planning and design phase. That is what we are following now, right? So as part of requirements communication, everything comes under this here. At the same time, design as well. Because again, design you need to understand in two ways. Design relating to system design, which is where high level and low level designs will be there. Developing high level and low level designs technically then will be done by the technical team, by preparing architectures, high level application, designing, all that. But whereas as far as the requirements design itself is concerned, preparing some UML diagrams and all is what we did. That's what we do being a BA, because in the phase of planning and design, there will be three different roles will be participating. One is about project manager will be involved in it, project management role. So where project planning, etc. will be done in this. Second is architect role. Architect develops solution architecture for the project. Next, business analyst role, where documentations will be prepared accordingly. But if you follow the traditional practices, documents will be prepared. If we follow agile practices, then we write user stories for that. So to write user stories, we use a tool called Jira, one of the tool. Of course, how to write user stories that I'll be showing in coming this thing. So once the planning and design comes, implementation. This is where generally developers will take care of, right? So developers will write code for the project. Not only writing the code, like user interface designs, everything will be done on the implementation phase. That's what it was. So once the implementation, the next is testing. Testing means testing the functionalities, whatever the functionalities which was identified, features and all that. So for that, those are all has to be tested. That is where generally testing comes to picture, right? So this is what the testing means for. Not only testing, the next is deployment and delivery. Means deployment and delivery means whatever we have tested that has to be deployed and delivered at the client location. Otherwise, if we don't deploy and deliver, so if you don't deploy the application, how come customer will accept the project? Because the project was developed in our environment, but we also should make sure the deployment and delivery has to happen from the client end as well. So deployment and delivery will be done. So once the deployment is done, the delivery of the application will be done parallelly. This is what, and followed by this maintenance. This is what generally the process of software development life cycle is. This is what generally SDLC. Irrespective of technology, irrespective of the domain, the process of software development life cycle remains same and constant. There is no change in this. But whereas when it comes to the model to choose with, right? What kind of model are we going to use? Those models were different. The first one is called waterfall model. You can see here. So these are the different models you can see. The first one is called waterfall model. So in this waterfall model, it's as name relates. Waterfall means whatever the stages of application development we call it as, like either it can be analysis, planning, design, implementation, testing, deployment, delivery. All this happens one after another, right? So there will be any parallel system. One after another happens. Means once analysis is done, we go for planning and design. After that, implementation, testing, that way. So one after another, we do that. So when waterfall model is being used, waterfall is a model we use when there are requirement clarity. For example, customer has given the requirements wherein customer has ensured you that no changes in requirements are taken place. For example, right, customer has given the requirements and customer is ensuring us that no changes in requirements were taken place further. If this is the case, waterfall model is being used. Why? Because if you follow the traditional practices of waterfall model, assume that you are in the stage of design, being a team. Again, working on analysis takes lot of time in terms of the manpower, right? So if manpower increases, effort increase, automatically budget will also increase. So when waterfall model will be adopted, waterfall is a model will be adopted when there is an assurance given by the customer that no changes in requirements will be taken place further. That's where generally waterfall model is being used. As part of communicating the requirements, regularly, right? So as far as the communication of requirements, as far as the role of a BA is concerned, we normally follow waterfall model, documents only to be prepared. This is one model. One of the traditional model we use is called waterfall. This is point number one. Point number two, V model. V model stands for verification and validation model. So verification and validation model is nothing but both implementation as well as testing happen sequentially. This is what we call it as V model stands for. Means development followed by testing. We are doing these two parallelly. So the advantage is that the amount of time you are spending to complete the project will come down, especially in V model, right? So you don't need to spend for testing a separate time, because normally in waterfall model, what we do, Development will be done. After that, testing will start. So that is how generally the structure we follow in waterfall. But whereas in Agile, in V model, it was not the case. In V model, both implementation as well as testing. So whatever the development team do, parallelly testing team will also perform the testing activities. This is what generally V model stands for: verification and validation model. That's what generally V model stands for. V model is meant for that. So the advantage under V model is that the amount of time you are spending for testing will come reduced, right? Will be reduced. So that parallelly you can do, like, because if you remember when I explained you about use cases and test cases, as I told you, even though in the initial stages of requirement gathering, testing people will also be involved, because testing people try to understand the requirements from the testing perspective, because they have to prepare test cases, etc., etc. Right? So this is what generally V model stands for. So these are the two different traditional models we are using since a very long time. Okay, traditional model. One is waterfall and second is V model. So in these models, as part of requirement communication is concerned, being a BA, we are preparing documents. That's what we have learned in earlier sessions, like BRDs, software requirement specifications. At the same time, preparing some UML diagrams. All these things comes under the traditional practices of application development. But whereas when it comes to Agile, Agile is a model nowadays we are using in application development. The reason is very simple. Earlier, there won't be much volatility in requirements, because situation in reference to the business was not that different, because situation of the business will be different in such a way earlier, where you don't see much difference in implementation. But nowadays volatility is more. Let's say, for example, if you have taken any e-commerce business or so, last minute surprises, last minute changes is what happening nowadays, because you never know what kind of business need customer has and how business is transforming day to day. So we are in competition. Whatever customer requirements, whatever the customer needs, expectations, demands, everything has to be addressed very fast. That's how the situation has been evolved. So that's how earlier was, right? So that's how the present situation is. So if you follow waterfall model, V model, it is difficult. For example, if you want to change the requirements document, whatever we have done earlier, so document changes and all, everything is difficult, because making changes in the existing document when and wherever it is needed is a tedious and challenging task for the team to perform. Because again, doing some corrections on that. Again, if you want to make any changes, again, you have to go to the design phase, doing some changes where technical people should accept that, right? So because there is a technical complexity which is involved in it. So effort will also get increased, right? So budget constraints could be there, right? So there are different reasons behind that. So changes into the existing application will be difficult if you follow the traditional practices, waterfall V model, because these are not so as flexible as we require for the present, because last minute changes of requirements customer expecting won't be possible in waterfall model as well as V model. The reason why nowadays the model, what is that we have adopted, is called agile model, right? So this is what generally we call it as Agile stands for. So what exactly Agile is, right? So Agile, first of all, Agile, we have to understand Agile is a methodology or a process, right? Agile is not a technology, okay? Do remember this. Agile is not a technology. Agile is a methodology or a process. Why are we adopting this agile methodology? Because agile is a process or a methodology we are adopting to provide a quality services, quality as well as value added services to the customer on time. Because the services, whatever we provide to the customer, even the quality service, even though, but if you have provided this on time, then only customer has a value. If customer doesn't require anything, that time even though we provide a solution, it doesn't make any difference. So agile is something which majorly focusing on some value systems, right? So there are some values and principles, so which agile has. So people who are working on application development should understand the value system. It's not something simply to write coding or testing, all that, because mindset matters in agile, not writing only user stories, all that, right? That doesn't really matters. But agile majorly focusing on the mindset. I will tell you a difference. Being a human, usually anyone, so we don't try to give the credit of effort of success whatever we have made. We don't try to share it with others. Usually, this is how usually humans were. Means individual performances is what we personally believe to be elevated. This is what everybody's this thing. But whereas in agile environment, the mindset should be developed in such a way. Persons who are working in agile should understand and should develop in a mindset in such a way where group performances will be the highest priority, not the individual performances. Individual performances will not be taken into consideration. It's only the group performances, because group activity, group success is what the mindset people has to believe in, people has to follow, because there is no individual performances will be calculated also in agile. It's a group effort. For example, there is a piece of work was given, that work has to be completed in a stipulated time. It's a time boxing kind of. Agile is a time boxing. For example, if there is a piece of work which is called a sprint, it has to be completed in 2 weeks, for example, right? So 2 weeks means 10 working days, right? 2 weeks means it's not 7. Monday to Friday are the working days, if you are considering, which will be 7, 5 into 2, 10 working days it has to complete. So in 10 working days, assume that it is 8 hours per day, right? Working time per person. So within that stipulated time, work has to be completed. There won't be any kind of deviation. There won't be any kind of extension of timelines will be given further, especially when you follow agile practices, I'm saying, right? So because traditional practice structure is different. Because traditional practices, we always have a choice where extension of timelines will be provided when and wherever it is needed. But agile adoption, because of the time boxing kind of, because whenever we want to work on strict timelines, agile we follow, and agile also follows that. So people who are working in agile environment should follow that. So if it is 2 weeks, at any cost, you have to complete task in 2 weeks of time, no matter how complex the work is. So people should ready in that manner, right? That's the reason why adoption of agile is not something to write user stories or epics, all that. I'm just mentioning this from the team perspective. Okay. Please don't consider this from the BA side. Okay. I'm not specifying this as a role of a BA, because as a team, I'm talking about as a team, when we are working, wants to work on agile, the mindset towards agile is something important, right? So what must be the mindset and what are the value systems that we have to understand? So these are the 4 value systems which agile follow. These are value systems or manifesto. You can see it on the screen, blue, on the top left. These are the 4 agile values which whoever is working on agile environment has to follow these values. These are the four values we have, four value systems. Also, we call it as agile manifesto, right? So both that. Some people call manifesto, some people say agile values. So what are those four values? The first one, individuals and interactions. Agile majorly believe in individuals and interactions. This is nothing to do with process and tools. Of course, we use some tools to work on application while we are working on. But especially in Agile, the major importance will be given for individuals and interactions. Means people has to interact more. Through interaction, we will be knowing many things. That's what generally we believe in. It's not in the documentation. We don't completely believe in documentation. So there must be an interaction among the team members. So then only we get the right deliverables. That's what we strongly believe in. So this is what the first value system in Agile is. Individuals and interaction is what generally we do. Point number one. Point number two, working software over comprehensive documentation. Means, as you see, whatever we did, right? So documents like BRD, SRS, this sort of thing won't be there in Agile. So what is comprehensive documentation? Comprehensive documentation in a form of writing user stories. That's what we are about to practice in coming day, right? Maybe tomorrow I'll start that. Writing how to write user stories and all, because we have already learned how to write documentation and diagrams. And here we are going to write user stories. Comprehensive documentation means there is no documentation as standard as separate. Right? So you don't, because as part of communicating requirements, right? So there is no documentation as such. Whoever is working on agile environment, especially as far as the team is concerned, so they have to follow a comprehensive documentation model where they have to develop the application based on some writing some user stories, which was done by the BA or a product owner. So this is what the second was. So individuals and interaction is the highest priority. So after that, we will be giving more importance to the comprehensive documentation. This is point number two. Point number three, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Means in the traditional practices, whenever we follow traditional like waterfall model, we model all that. Customer won't be part of the project. Customer always is an outsider. Customer is supporting us from outside. That's how generally the structure is. But whereas when it comes to the agile, customer collaboration means customer will also be a part of the project. How come it's possible? This is the reason why there is a role called product owner. You might have heard about it. Product owner. Product owner is a kind of role will be played by the people who are working on application development. There will be three different roles, right? So there will be three different roles in Agile, because if you follow traditional practices, you have business analyst, you have project manager, you have developer, right? So like that it will be. If you follow traditional way, like if you follow traditional model of application development, we have a lot of roles. Project manager role will be there. You have business analyst role. You have developers, testing team, user interface designers, right? So etc. etc. But whereas when it comes to the agile, it is not the case. Agile is role specific. There is a role. For that role, there are some characteristics will be defined. Whoever is fitted into that role will be given an opportunity to them. That's how generally agile will works with. So in agile environment, there are three different roles. One is product owner role, you see. There will be a role called development team or a scrum team, followed by scrum master. Three different roles. So why I said role specific? That's what I said here, right? So here, if you can see, yeah, here I told you the customer collaboration, right? So why and how customer collaboration is? customer representative is called product owner, right? So because product owner will be the customer representative, customer will give a person whom we call it as a PO. So this product owner will work with closely with the development team, right? So he'll be with the team always. He or she will be there in the team always. So the product owner role will be played by a person whoever is having experience in business analysis, right? So because being a BA, our role, if you are working on agile environment, sometimes depends on the kind of expertise what we have. So business analyst will act as a product owner, right? So because there is a line of difference between the role of a BA to product owner, please listen carefully. Because if you are a BA, your focus is to understand the business problem, providing solutions. That's it. You will be confined only to that. But if you are wearing a hat as a product owner, right? So you should have a, I don't use a word called ability, but you should have an intention that you are a owner for the product. Means whatever the product you are about to develop, you owns the product, right? So you need to understand the goal and vision of the product. You are the one who is going to lead this product to the next level. Means you are acting as a representative of a customer on their behalf. So you have a specific qualification, specific authorities in such a way. What is that team has to develop? What are your priority items will be organized and managed by the product owner, because product owner will have an authority in such a way to an extent possible. If team is not developing the one what they are expecting, product owner has a right to cancel the sprint. That's how it was. So what is sprint and all everything that I'll explain later. Okay, I'm not going in detail. What is sprint, what is product backlog. I'll show it on the Jira board so that you'll be understood well. Okay, so practically I'll show you that in coming tomorrow, maybe tomorrow onwards, I'll start. So product owner role is there. So product owner is a role who owns the product, right? Whoever is the working on the product. So product owner role will be played by the BA. So this is how generally this customer collaboration come into picture. So when you talk about this customer collaboration is this, because in the traditional model, you don't follow any customer collaboration as separate. Customer will be an outsider and we will be interacting with the different ways where there will be a point of contact. Sometimes for some projects, that point of contact will give you all the required information. But whereas when we follow agile practices, it's not the case. That point of contact may be in any other mean. We call it as a product owner. Product owner will always there with the city. Customer collaboration means product owner will be collaborated with the development team so that whatever that customer is expecting, we can complete it very effectively. And we will be knowing what customer wants. So this is also the third value system in Agile. The fourth one is responding to change. Responding to change means, that's what I said, right? Last minute surprises will also be entertained in Agile. Why? Because whatever the functionalities are we presenting, especially in Agile, will be in a form of user story. But characteristic of a user story is individual on its nature, right? So as long as the functionality or a user story you are writing as separate, as individual, there is no connectivity with other user stories. We always have a choice to make it more dynamic and you can improve when and wherever it is needed, right? So you can do the corrections whenever it is required because it won't get affected with other functionalities. So this is where generally it is possible. Responding to change, last minute changes can be made because, why? Because, for example, if you are preparing this documentation, like, or if you follow traditional model, so whatever the features, non-functional requirements, all these were interconnected. So if you are making any changes in one area, automatically it will be impacted on the other end. But when you follow Agile, it was not the case. When you follow the Agile practices, whatever that we are working on, whatever the process we follow, this is where generally responding to change come into picture. Means last minute changes can also be made because the communication of requirements will be in such a way where we are writing user stories. Instead of document, we are writing user story. If you are not interested towards that user story, or if you want to make any improvements of the particular user story, so that we can do a number of times. There is a facility. That's where generally responding to change come into picture. Means last minute changes can also be made in the Agile. So these are the 4 Agile value systems which normally we follow whenever we are working on Agile environment. Is it clear, everyone? Geeta, Lakshmi, Muhammad.
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, right. So this is how generally the different from traditional to Agile. Now, when it comes to the roles, as I have mentioned earlier, let me show you again. So these are the 3 roles. Means if you follow Agile means these 3 roles will be there. If you don't follow Agile, then if you follow traditional practices, then you won't see this kind of roles. But if you are following these roles means we will be in the Agile environment. Agile has 3 roles. One is product owner role, second Scrum team, and third is Scrum Master. Underline this point, again I am repeating. Every role will have some characteristics. Whoever is suitable, that person will be allotted to that role. Okay, underline. It is not designation, it's a role. If you are qualified, let's say for example, you have all the qualifications to be a product owner. If team management has decided, they will be taken you on that. Because here you may get a doubt here. Raj, if I am a business analyst, can I be a product owner all the time? Sometimes. If you are really qualified as a Scrum Master, they believe, based on the qualification criteria what you have, we get an opportunity to work as a Scrum Master also, right? So provided the qualification criteria we have to meet. Because all the business analyst role expertises won't be the same, right? So depends on the projects they are working with, they worked earlier. Depends on the technologies, clients which they have approached earlier. Expertise of business analyst vary from one to another. For example, a person is having 10 years of experience as a BA. Whatever the expertise and as well as skill sets which those two different people won't be the same, right? So because the kind of projects they work with, everything matters, right? So what models, what technologies, so that comes with it, right? So product owner has some qualifications required. Scrum Master has some qualifications required. So this is what generally the roles which generally in Agile it happens. So the first role is called product owner. Product owner is a person who defines the goal and vision of the product, right? So product owner ultimate goal is to define the goal and vision of the product. And whatever they have defined goal and vision, they have to visualize it. How do they visualize? Visualizing it by creating a roadmap, by writing some epics and user stories. Please rejoin again. It is about to disconnect. Please don't confuse. So epics and user stories is what they have to write. So defining the goal and vision of the product is the first thing being a product owner you have to do. Next, you need to write epics and user stories. How to write? Practically, I'll show you. Okay, don't confuse. When I use Jira, I'll show you that because I cannot directly go to Jira and show you. First of all, I have to explain what Exile and why Jira, all that. Then it's better. So hence that part I'm explaining tomorrow once it is done. So epics and user stories and all everything is what being a product owner we have to write. Next, we need to maintain product backlog because product backlog means it's a repository. It's a repository